Thank you for looking at my presentation, which was this is my presentation from earlier the week. This is my presentation from earlier in the week at the World Usability Congress in Austria, where I'd first of all like to thank Bruce Horn for introducing me and Hannes for inviting me. By background, I'm Norwegian living in Britain. I have an art background. My mentor was Doug Engelbart. I've been a teacher, and I host the Future of Text Symposium and publish a series of books. I develop a word processor author, and I work now on an extended reality project. These are the people who have contributed to the Future of Text books. I would particularly like to thank Vint Cerf, who has been a partner and supporter along the way, and I would like to invite anyone in the audience to contribute as well. If you're interested in aspects of the Future of Text, please feel free to get in touch. Last Friday, Battlefield 6, a first-person shooter on console and PC, was released. One of the interesting things is how you deploy a bipod. You have to do certain things in combination. You can't just click a button. I found that very interesting because gamers like to have a lot of control over what they do in an environment. It's not just dumbed down, so to speak, to click on an icon on a screen. Clearly this is successful. They've already made 100 million. So we need to ask, when we talk about usability, usability for whom? It can mean diverse users, or rather it must mean diverse users, and that also includes power users. Personally, I get very excited when I can give a user a useful ability which they can actually use. Useful ability. Interaction, to be able to do things with something, is so important. To learn is to interact and follow connections with our minds. Even something as superficially passive as reading a book or watching a movie is more interactive than reading the synopsis because your brain has to follow along. But there is, of course, more than that. We could say that AI can do our homework, but it cannot learn for us. Some people say there's more to life than text. I'm not sure, but what I'm completely sure about is digital text still has enormous potential for changing how we interact with our knowledge. So as an overview, we're going to talk about the great Doug Engelbart. We'll go through the tool for thought or word processor author that I have developed, look at metadata that ties things together, look at how this may extend into virtual reality and extended reality, and how with metadata XR can become something even more powerful, where instead of just AI for artificial intelligence, we can also have IA for intelligence augmentation. That's really the conclusion, but please don't leave quite yet. In 1962, Doug published a paper, Augmenting Human Intellect. Let me read you the first sentence. By augmenting human intellect, we mean increasing the capability of a person to approach a complex problem situation, to gain comprehension to suit their particular needs, and to derive solutions to problems. I think this is a beautiful high-level goal. Highly recommend reading the paper if you haven't already done so. And in 1968, after a lot of work and a long story, he demonstrated hypertext, he invented the computer mouse, he had windowing systems, and so on.
If in your office, you as an intellectual worker were supplied with a computer display backed up by a computer that was alive for you all day and was instantly responsive, instantly responsive to every action you had, how much value could you derive from that?
That is really a question for the ages, and of course today his kind of fun slip up by saying responsible could easily be applied to LLM AI situations in the world. I want to show you just one single screenshot from his presentation, and that is this squiggle, which is actually a map. And it's an interactive map. Any of these text elements can be clicked on to go somewhere. This we had for a while in general release in the 90s as in image maps. But today we've kind of reverted to simplified systems. Very few average knowledge workers can put an image up on the internet, up on the web, which they can annotate in a way that people can click and interact with it. So Doug warned us about
Well,
paradigms.
I think that the realization that paradigms have often anchored people into pathways or routes and blocked out the possibilities that should be there for other exploratory pathways to take. And so the long established thing of pages of books and printing, etc., have gotten us into the assumptions or paradigms about how we're meant to read and study.
Doug pointed out that urgent, complex problems are becoming ever more urgent and ever more complex. And I think you would agree with me that that is the way it is today. So let's look at something specific, author. It's really nice for me to be able to show you this today because author is being highlighted in the macOS App Store as one of the best apps for students. There's a wonderful little write-up, so please feel free to have a look at it if you're interested. We have a redesign, and there will be an update any minute now. So the design aims were contradictory and therefore a challenge. Better focus and better overview. Quick access to commands and minimalist, robust and easy citing. So with better focus and better overview, there's the thing of the escape key, the button in the top left-hand corner of the keyboard. It doesn't only go out of full screen, it goes into it. So it becomes a toggle. This has turned out to be very, very useful in giving us a very clean thinking space, but also access to our other information as well. We have several themes because not all eyes are the same, have the same requirements, and also the same person, depending on what's being done, might need different visual environments. For instance, writing and editing are very different tasks, and in use we've seen that people prefer maybe something more subdued when writing, but very, very strong when doing editing. So in the previous screenshots, you may have noticed some of the text was marked. So let me show you what marking is. You select text that represents for you, the author, what a paragraph is about. Very often we have to write a lot of stuff in a paragraph for context for a reader, but there's only a little bit of it that really stands out to ourselves. So in author, instead of having a big yellow background, we have this mark that can be orange like hair, also blue, depending on your preference, that can then go away when you export your paper. So it's really to help you skim and understand what your paper is about. This also goes into the structure and navigation. So if we click outline in the middle at the bottom here, we get this outline. And the reason we have an outline is in author, you can't just arbitrarily choose a font for a heading. You have to assign a heading as a heading. That's why it's useful here. And also any marked text appears as normal text here. So you should be able to skim through your document to see different sections and to follow the flow from the outline. If you point to something in the outline, everything else fades a little bit to make it even more in focus for you. The keywords includes auto-extracted keywords for the different sections. Some of them can be in color. This is something we're experimenting with to help you navigate your document so you can see what kind of information is in what kind of section. Academic papers, it is of course very important that you have the right citations in the right place. So you can also see what citations are in different sections. Focus mode is quite a standard thing these days where everything except where the cursor is faded out. In author, this does not go by sentence or paragraph, it goes by heading. So that's a logical section, so we can therefore really focus on what we're writing right now. So what commands to have available is a huge design thing. We have a toolbar at the bottom of author where we've gone through many, many iterations to decide what should be there. It should be just enough. So the Ask AI, the AI in author is implemented in a way where it suggests things and analyzes, but it doesn't write for you. That's important for us. Focus, you just saw. The writing mode is the current mode. Then you have outline that we just looked at, and then mapping, which we'll get back to. Some people need to know how many words there are in their documents. And settings is really, really important. It's about ownership. In settings, you can decide what the AI will know about you, nothing, or you can write something specific. You can choose the themes, you can decide a lot of stuff. So the context menu is interactable by either two-finger click on the trackpad or control click on selected text. So here we have the commands that people really need that are not obvious. For instance, there is no command B for bold because we expect our users to know what that would be. So these are the more different novel commands. Mark you just saw. And also next to it, you'll see there are the keyboard shortcuts to help you slowly over time without having to make real effort, get to know them. The copy menu, or submenu rather, has normal Command C copy, but it also has lots of other options such as copy only keywords or key sentence or concepts, etc., which is a way that we have AI working within the workflow of author, not just as a freestanding thing. If you do the context menu without selecting text, you have different options, including dictation, adding different things like endnote citations, cuttings, and so on. You can also choose to insert process text, which is another AI feature where the prompt by default, which you can change in settings, says something along the lines of this text is most likely either copied from a PDF or the web. It might also be a transcript. First of all, check if it's in English. If not, translate it to English and then clean it up. That's it. This setting, to repeat, you can go into settings to change, to have it translate into another language or anything else that you want. There's also a neat little date as heading command option 1, where a normal heading is command 1. That gives you the today's date in your journal or anywhere you want, so you can instantly keep writing. Space management is really quite important. It's very easy, at least for me, when there is a lot of stuff, a lot of text that I've written, that it becomes too much. So we have a new command where you select whatever text you're kind of done with for now, and you do the control menu, control click, and you choose to collapse. We don't call it fold because you fold things into an outline, so that's why collapse might not be the best word, but that's what we have. Please also notice the keyboard shortcut, Command-Shift-C. When you do that with your left hand, it's like a grabbing or scrunching together motion. So you do that, and all of that text goes away, and it appears as these tiny little carrots or arrows. You click on them again, and everything comes back. It's taken at least a decade to figure out a way to do this where all the formatting is retained, nothing gets funny. So I'm very, very, very grateful that we have that now. Let me show you a different use. So here we select all the way to the end of the heading, and we do the same thing. And now those little arrows are up there. So it's much less obtrusive, which may or may not be what you want, but you have the option to choose. Please note, if you try to cut that heading now or delete, author will say, you really don't want to do that. There's extra stuff here, so it can't accidentally get rid of it. Also, when you export your document, there is an option to automatically expand these in case you have hidden some and you forgot and you need to deliver something. So citing is of course super important in academia. So what you can do with the companion app reader is copy to cite, Command-Shift-C or control-click, and then you go to author and you point, and it points it as a proper citation. If you click on it, you can see that it's a real citation, and that means that it's a kind of a smart object. So when you export this document to PDF, let's say, it'll automatically have this citation in the reference section, and it'll be properly marked in the body of the text. The reason this works is there's metadata at the end of the document. We will get to that in more detail in a minute. So all of these aims should not only be in writing mode, but also in map mode. So the mapping in author to help you map your thoughts, the notion I'm working with is magic fingers connected to your mind. So for instance, you define some text, and here I actually define the word text just by saying it's the basic stuff of this work. leave it as a concept, click OK, and then I click map at the bottom of the map. And here you see the word text with lots of lines coming into it. They're quite weak because they're pointing to it. Let me show you what that means. I now add another thing, a node, whatever you want to call it. Then I do edit, define concept, and then I write this work is primarily about text. The word text becomes bold because it exists on the map. Select it, and there's a heavier line going to text and a thin line going from glossary, meaning that text, the word text is in the selected node's definition. This may seem a little confusing, but if you play around with it, it becomes more obvious. So you may have noticed that there weren't many lines. The traditional way of having a map is to have all the lines all the time. That becomes really cool as a diagram, but not that useful. So we try to have the lines only when you need to. The context menus is something that I keep revising and trying to optimize. There's a different context menu for when you click on empty space, when you click on one selected node, or on several. So here we have several. So I click, select similar, and boom, all the people are selected on the map, and you see connections going from them. That can be very useful, so you don't have to manually select things. And now, because they are selected, you have options such as layout here in the lower right-hand corner, where you can do things like make everything left align, and as you see, with several selected items, you can do layout, sort vertical. It's all sorted out for you. And here's another example of that. Boom, cleaned it up. And now what I want to do is not select that, but I want to have it collapsed, just like we can collapse text in the main document in the writing mode. So I select, do Command-Shift-C, same keyboard shortcut, give it a name, and boom, now it's hidden inside these angled arrows. So I can select them, and there I see the items that were hidden, move the hidden collapse thing anywhere I want, and when I click on them, they appear. Furthermore, a useful command is when you select something, you can hit the space bar, and it hides everything else, so you can really focus on what you have selected. You can also select something and then do a keyboard shortcut or command to no longer select it, but select what it points to, which can be useful if, for instance, you want to arrange the things that connects to it using the things we have. So that was author. That's the state of it today. So metadata, we already looked at a little bit. And it's really important to highlight that the substrate of digital text is, of course, not paper or vellum or stone. It is metadata. And this is profoundly important to the future of thought in digital environments. Traditional metadata in this context includes things like in the beginning of the book, you have the copyright information. In the visual meta, which is my approach, it's the same, just organized with a little so-and-so is so-and-so, and it can have additional metadata such as the structure of the document, defined terms, and all kinds of good stuff. And it's just an appendix in the document. Vint Cerf in the ACM Communications magazine wrote a better description than I ever could. Visual meta adds an exploitable, self-contained self-awareness within some of the objects in this universe and increase their enduring referenceability. That is the point of what we're trying to do. So XR, I'm very lucky to work with Dini Grigar, the lead PI on the Future of Text and Extended Reality projects, which is sponsored by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, which we're so grateful for. Coding has been by Andrew Thompson for reading and Fabien Benetou for authoring. So last year we focused particularly on reading in XR, where we had the ACM proceedings documents available. So the user could choose to read short papers, long papers, and so on. And once they found the paper they want to use, literally drag it into space, read a summary, and then also open what looks like a full PDF, but it can be flexible. Table of contents on the one side, and on the other side are all the references. They can be clicked, moved into space and be interacted with as well. This year we've been working on a system called spatial scaffolding by Fabien Binnetou, where, as you can see in these screenshots, we've gone through numerous tests of different interactions and experiences. And earlier this year, we demonstrated in the MetaQuest a way to do annotated bibliography. So you have these papers, which are also ACM papers. So the user can choose to open one. And when it's open, it looks like a normal PDF, but it's actually interactable. So one of the things that can be done is spatial annotation. The user can pull relevant text into space, so they can build up more of a notion of what they find interesting in different ways, and it's connected to its point of origin. And as you can see, we're also experimenting with a hand menu. So what we've been doing recently is sculpting knowledge. And in this, we're using the map that you've just seen from author, exported as JSON, which anybody can integrate. It's a completely open format. And also, please note, there are many other Fabien Binnetou filters to go into the environment. But in this case, it's one of the same maps. So you'll see the lines only appear when person is moving them. The hand gets transparent, so you can see what you're moving. So you can put things around to make sense. And if you want to change the environment, you just tap on your wrist and you can toggle different environments. And also important to note, when you let go, there is something we call Binnetou billboarding, meaning that the text will face you head on as you let go. But once you move, it will stay there. So it's a one moment, one time billboarding. Billboarding is a term in XR, which usually means the text follows, turns around to face you. Here it only does it on letting go. So some of the insights we've had so far this year: connections are connections. So the future of XR is rich, but we are still tied to our hands and eyes. For instance, a connection line in XR as a notion is really cool, but if it's there all the time, it feels, at least to me and some of the other people who've been testing this, like a washing line or something. It's in the space. It needs to be managed. So then we get to hands. The magic fingers are really, really important, particularly in XR. And the really, really interesting thing is that you could say that objects in virtual reality have no physical presence, but not entirely true. If you pinch something in space in XR, what you're touching is your own fingers. I think that's quite poetic. Also, we found that it's easy to have the gestures be misinterpreted by the system. So therefore, we have fingers touching other fingers because that's unlikely to be a mistake of random thing. So we have a mana menu, a hand menu that we're working on. Really importantly, different information requires different affordances and environments. There is no one type of information or one type of interaction that fits all. So that leads to the next point, change. It's not only important to change from flat to 3D, it's also important to change the environment. So as you saw briefly, just having no background very often becomes really freeing. But then other times you may need to put certain information in a certain place. So maybe you do want a virtual bookcase. Maybe you want a different kind of environment. And then a few seconds later you don't. You should be able to change it and have the information intelligently either stay or move with the environment as it should. Also, seated, standing, and walk around XR is very different. How we hold ourselves in XR matters. It's just a physical thing about what kind of office people will have. And that brings me to the end of the insights. It's really important to experiment with different ways to experience what this can be. Being there is different from thinking about it. And to go back to Doug, we must not be stuck with just one paradigm. So foresight, the future, is a lot longer than the past. We need to think longer, deeper, and bigger. So then we're looking at how we can extend the workflow. We need to be able to work in traditional devices. I don't think we're going to be working full-time in headsets anytime soon, and only there. We should be able to sculpt our knowledge and also map our knowledge, shape our knowledge, experience our knowledge. Then we need to be able to exit to traditional media, put that spatial stuff into a new document, which can be presented in traditional 2D. And then if someone chooses to go into an XR environment again, this spatial knowledge should therefore be possible to have explode or blossom back into XR. If we don't do this in an open way, it's going to be owned by big companies, and I think that will be a problem. I think that'll constrain the future of this kind of environments and thinking. And please note, I'm not saying that nothing should be proprietary, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with having the equivalent of a very fancy 3D model only appearing as in an iconic form when it's in an open environment, and then when it's interacted with to open in special software. Nothing wrong with that. So AI and XR, supported by rich, robust, and open metadata, can contribute to real intelligence augmentation. I really believe that. So in closing, XR truly extends our potential. How we choose to extend ourselves will define who we are. We have to ask ourselves, what will the paradigm for XR be? Will it be only entertainment, or will it also be enlightenment? Which environments and tools do we wish to build? We have to answer these questions together. So the future of text has not been written. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope that you will engage in dialogue as to the future of text, whether it's an XR, 2D, pen and paper, or whatever it might be. Again, thank you.